Today, we're going to explore a really powerful story. It's all about the incredible strength of faith, the quiet beauty of human kindness, and the tragic, often ironic ways those two things can completely misunderstand each other. So let's start off with a question for you. What does absolute, totally unquestioning faith really look like? And maybe more importantly, what are the consequences of that kind of faith? That tension that's right at the heart of the story we're about to unfold. All right, so our story begins in this solitary house, the only one in the entire valley, sitting right on the crest of a low hill. And this is home to our main character, a farmer named Lencho. Now, Lencho is this simple, hardworking guy. The story calls him an ox of a man because of how tirelessly he works his fields. For him, life is pretty straightforward. His family's future, everything he has, is all tied up in this beautiful field of ripe corn. And the success of that entire harvest hinges on one single, unpredictable thing: a good, solid downpour. So when the rain finally starts to fall, Lencho is just overjoyed. He's so happy, he actually runs outside just to feel it. And this is where we get a real peek into his mind. He doesn't just see water. He sees money. He sees prosperity. The big drops are 10-cent pieces, the little ones are fives. It just goes to show how deeply his reality is connected to the natural world. But as you can probably guess, this moment of pure happiness is tragically short-lived. The very weather that had promised him so much is about to take a sudden and incredibly destructive turn. That gentle rain he had wished for, those new coins from the sky, it suddenly transforms. A strong wind kicks up, and it brings with it a violent hailstorm. The promise of coins turns into a nightmare of what the story beautifully calls frozen pearls. For a whole hour, the hail just pounds everything: the house, the garden, the hillside, and most tragically, Lencho's cornfields. When it finally stops, the scene is just one of complete ruin. The entire field is white, like it's covered in salt. Everything is gone. He's just in despair. Standing in the middle of his destroyed field, he tells his sons that even a swarm of locusts would have been more merciful. The swarm had left them with absolutely nothing. But here's the thing, even in this moment of total loss, with his family's survival on the line, Lencho's spirit isn't completely broken. He has one last resort, this core belief that is just unshakable: his profound faith in God. He truly believes that God sees everything and will not let his family starve. Now, even though he was a man of the fields, Lencho knew how to write. So the following Sunday, he decides to put his absolute faith into action. He comes up with a pretty extraordinary plan. He sits down and writes a letter, not to a friend, not to a bank, but directly to God. And in this letter, he explains what happened and makes a very specific request. He needs 100 pesos to plant his fields again and to survive until the new crop comes in. So Lencho goes to town and he mails his letter, addressed simply to God. And this is where our story takes a really interesting turn, because this very unusual piece of mail lands in the hands of the local post office employees. A postman, just doing his job sorting mail, comes across the letter. He sees the address and he just bursts out laughing. I mean, in his entire career, he's never seen anything like it. Amused and a little bewildered, he takes it straight to his boss, the postmaster. The postmaster, who's described as this fat, friendly guy, he has a good laugh too, at first. But then almost immediately, his laughter fades. He gets serious. He's just deeply struck by the sincerity, by the sheer force of belief that must be behind a letter like this. He wasn't moved by how absurd it was, but by the incredible depth of the writer's faith. He just marvels at this man who's starting a conversation with God like it's the most natural thing in the world. And right then and there, he decides he has to protect that faith. So to make sure Lencho's belief isn't shattered, the postmaster comes up with this incredibly generous plan. He's going to answer the letter himself. He asks his employees to chip in as an act of charity, and he even gives a significant part of his own salary. And this selfless act of human kindness, which was intended to preserve a man's faith in God, is what sets the stage for the story's powerful, memorable, and deeply ironic climax. So the next Sunday, Lencho comes back to the post office. When the postman hands him the envelope, he doesn't show the slightest bit of surprise. Not at all. Why? Because he was fully 100% expecting a reply. His faith was just that certain. He opens the envelope and starts to count the money inside. But then his expression changes. It's not the 100 pesos he asked for. It's less. The postmaster had only managed to scrape together 70 pesos. So how does he react to this? I mean, it's a generous, if incomplete, answer to his prayer. Do you think he's grateful for this small miracle? Well, he gets angry. In his mind, it's impossible for God to have made a mistake or to have denied his request. So he figures there can be only one explanation. The post office employees must have stolen the missing 30 pesos. He immediately writes another letter asking God for the rest, but begging him not to send it through the mail. And that's shocking, ironic ending. That's what makes this story so brilliant. It reveals these deep lessons about our best intentions, our strongest beliefs, and, well, our most tragic flaws. So when you really break it down, you see this fascinating collision of themes. You have Lencho's unshakable faith, which is both his greatest strength and his fatal flaw. Then you have the postmaster's quiet, selfless human kindness. But it's that dramatic irony, the fact that the very people who helped him are the ones he condemns, that shows this tragic gap between Lencho's simple, faith-based world and the messy reality of human society. And all of this leaves us with one big, provocative thought to chew on. Where is that line between a pure, profound faith and an innocence that actually risks becoming ignorance? It's a question about belief, perception, and the really complicated nature of being human.